The following program presents principles designed to promote good health and is not intended to take the place of personalized professional care. The opinions and ideas expressed are those of the speaker. Viewers are encouraged to draw their own conclusions about the information presented.
Hello and welcome to Health for a Lifetime. I'm your host, Don McIntosh. Today we're going to be doing a health update with Dr. Neil Nedley. Dr. Nedley is from Ardmore, Oklahoma. He is a specialist in internal medicine, and he likes to keep abreast of the things that are happening in the health world. And you every day you have different cutting information, cutting edge information that comes in concerning health. And we're sitting here in the year 2006, and so this is up to date for right now.
That's right. Actually, these studies that we're going to be going through were all published in August and September of 2006.
Okay.
So even though you might be seeing this program much later than that, it's still going to be pretty recent.
Yeah, 2006. So we're just going to go for it. We're going to talk about some different things. First thing we want to talk about, no particular order, but we're just going to go through a bunch of studies that are just new. One of them is about irritable bowel syndrome, and we want to talk about that.
Yeah, irritable bowel syndrome is where you have abdominal pain and bloating and often constipation alternating with diarrhea. It's pretty common. About 20% of the public has irritable bowel syndrome. And the question is, how does it begin? And this study shows pretty conclusively now. In fact, the lead study investigator, Dr. John Marshall, says it demonstrates conclusively that irritable bowel syndrome is a real and significant clinical phenomena that results from having a previous infection of the GI tract.
So an infection in the GI tract is what triggers irritable bowel.
That's right. And so that usually means food poisoning or getting that infection from somebody else. So, for instance, toxigenic E. coli can bring about irritable bowel syndrome, Campylobacter, Salmonella, Shigella, all of these bacteria or viruses that are often transmitted through food or through contact with others is really the underlying cause that sets up irritable bowel syndrome for the rest of the individual's life.
So the way to avoid all of these different niceties, if you want to call them that, is not going out to eat?
Well, or watching very carefully what you do eat. Most of the infections that are transmitted through food are transmitted through animal products. Dairy is a wonderful culture media. Salmonella, those type of things can be present. We try to pasteurize dairy to minimize the risks, but sometimes those risks occur after the pasteurization occurs. And there are some notable plant foods that can also have some infections in them, not from the plants themselves, but apple cider, for instance. A lot of apple orchards are also cattle ranches.
Okay.
And so if the apples drop into the cow pie, 1% of cows harbor toxigenic E. coli in their colon. And so that'll be out there in the cow pie. If that apple is picked up and made into apple cider, which a lot of the apples on the ground are that way.
Without really being washed.
You can get it that way. And so that's why they're talking about pasteurizing even apple cider now to try to prevent these risks.
Okay, so interesting. That kind of conundrum has been solved by this study.
That's right, and it gives us a clue now how we can prevent it.
Okay, next thing we want to talk about is divorce in midlife hurts women's heart health.
Well, the health effects of marriage are pretty well established. Marriage can particularly help men, but also help women. People who have ever been married actually live longer than their never married counterparts if you take a look at longevity. And they're less likely to suffer from mental health problems such as depression and anxiety. However, researchers really haven't looked at what divorce does. They've looked at previous marriage but taking a look at a breakup is something that this particular group looked at. Dr. Hayward and Zhang, they're from Bowling Green State University in Ohio, and they published in the Journal of Marriage and Family in August of 2006, and they found out that divorce takes quite a toll on the cardiovascular health of women in particular.
So would it be better for them not to stay together?
Well, it would be better for them to stay together.
And figure out what the problem
And figure
was.
out what the problem is and see how they can best get along. Actually, heart disease is what significantly increased. Women who had been divorced, widowed, or remarried were more likely to develop heart disease during the course of the study than those who were married continuously.
Okay, so I guess the take-home thing is try and figure out what's wrong instead of leaving the person that you're with.
That's right. Better for your health, mentally and physically.
Next study we're going to look at is olive oil, something that supposedly, I guess, is a big part of the Mediterranean diet. What are they finding about olive oil?
Well, for years we've known olive oil has beneficial properties. The monounsaturated fat increases the HDL cholesterol, for instance, better for diabetics as well. But we're finding out particularly the extra virgin olive oil is particularly effective at lowering heart disease risk because of its high level of plant compounds called polyphenols. These polyphenols are potent antioxidants. They're not present in regular olive oil. They're just present in the extra virgin olive oil.
So, look, some people will take olive oil and actually pour a little bit on their salad or their potato or this or that. Is that good?
That is good, particularly if it's extra virgin olive oil. If they're not using too much, you can overdo it in the fats and the oils. But the extra virgin olive oil, they also found actually increased the HDL cholesterol, the good cholesterol, HDL, much more than the regular olive oil. So there's something about these polyphenols in the extra virgin olive oil that seems to help the good cholesterol as well.
Interesting. Now, next study we want to look at is obesity as it relates to blindness.
Yes, this was a UK study, and it found that obesity actually increases the 3 major causes of blindness in the Western world.
Which are macular degeneration,
age-related macular degeneration, abbreviated AMD, diabetic retinopathy, of course, is dramatically increased among the obese because diabetes is increased, and then cataracts also.
So obesity is related to all of those.
Yes.
And what's the relationship, did it say?
Well, we know what the relationship is for diabetic retinopathy. That means decreased control of the blood sugars when you're obese. You're not as sensitive to insulin. They're not sure in regards to the AMD and the cataracts what the association is, but there is an association.
So if you don't want to be blind, lose weight.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what the study's teaching.
Right.
Okay. Next thing we'll look at is not a surprise as we read it. It says Americans are not eating enough fruits and vegetables.
Yes, and in fact, the old standard was get 5.
Get
or
5.
Quotes,
give me 5.
Give me 5.
Right.
And that means 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. Just recently, in 2006, the U.S. government changed that. It's now recommended 6.5 cups of fruits and vegetables daily in adults. And what is interesting is only 40% of Americans were meeting the 5 recommendations.
Well, this is bad news for them.
And so, yes, some groups, for instance, now that they've increased it, there are some groups, particularly 14 to 18-year-old boys, only 1% of them are getting the 6.5 cups of fruits and vegetables a day that they're supposed to be getting.
And they're also very obese in other studies, right?
That's right.
So what are we going to do? I mean, Americans probably won't eat anything unless you deep fry it. But that wouldn't help either.
Well, fruits are actually still pretty good. And so are vegetables. We need to retrain the cook sometimes to make the vegetables tastier to the 14 to 18-year-old group. But actually, we need to get this message out. These foods are healthy. They prevent a host of diseases, and they can cause you to have a good quality of life for a long time.
Yeah, I tell you, I just had some lightly sauteed vegetables over a steamy bed of brown rice.
All right. All right.
Excellent.
Yes.
And it's at this Mediterranean restaurant. I went with some of my friends, and some of the foods there were so high in fat. I said, what can I do? And the chef said, why don't I try this for you? That's what I always get when I go there now. Okay, C-section as it relates to maternal health.
Yes, the emphasis has been for quite a while that we're probably overdoing C-sections in the U.S. Often C-sections are done rather, abrupt decision is made. There's a lack of progression in labor. And then there's convenience, actually, sometimes for the woman.
Have a birth date.
That's right, as well as sometimes for the physician. But people don't always look at the risk, because most C-sections go well and the baby and the mother end up being fine. We don't take a look at the large population group to see what risks are there. But pregnant women who deliver by C-section are more than 3 times as likely to die than their peers who deliver vaginally. 3 times as likely.
Well, that's not really a risk you want to just take lightly.
Yeah, and the risk is increased blood clots, increased risk of infection, and also increased anesthesia complications. Obviously, you don't need the degree of anesthesia for vaginal deliveries. And so, if at all possible, and not everyone is going to be possible, but often if we treat the delivery process as a normal process, and without the stress and those type of things, the woman will do better, will progress better, and will be able to deliver vaginally.
We're talking about these up-to-date studies. Another one we have here is a mother's intake of vitamin E and the child's asthma risk.
Yeah, and this is the mother's intake of vitamin E during the time that she's pregnant. Critically important. Children whose mothers had the lowest vitamin E intake during pregnancy were more likely to suffer wheezing at age 5 and were twice as likely to have diagnosed asthma. And that seems to be related to the fact that their mothers weren't consuming enough vitamin E during pregnancy.
Is that vitamin E part of prenatal vitamins that people get?
Sometimes it is, and often it is not. Most of the prenatal vitamins center on the iron. And actually, it's best to get your vitamin E from foods because, and of course, you can only get vitamin E from plant foods. The 4 types of vitamin E that you need that are available in plant foods, and it's primarily going to be more of your almonds, more of your plant foods that are higher in fat that are going to have vitamin E. Some exceptions to that would be blueberries, for instance. The type of fat in blueberries is very much associated with vitamin E. And so getting more of the plant oils is critical. Wheat germ, getting the whole wheat bread instead of eating the white bread. If you're eating that as a mother, you're going to reducing your child's risk of disease later on.
Interesting. One more before our break. Low magnesium may mean weaker muscles.
Yes. Magnesium plays a number of key roles in body function, including energy, metabolism, and adequate levels have been shown to be essential for athletic performance as well. Okay. It's one nutrient that an athlete needs to make sure they have enough of. Calcium is another one of those. But the researchers from the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition that looked at this found that individuals with higher magnesium levels had a stronger hand grip, more power in their leg muscles, particularly their lower leg muscles, their calves, and were able to extend their knees and ankles with more force. And so as we age, we can prevent the muscle loss due to aging with adequate magnesium. The problem is 68% of Americans are not getting enough magnesium in their diet.
So how should they get that? Should they go get some magnesium tablets or eat the foods that are high in magnesium?
Eat the foods higher in magnesium would be the preferable way, but if they can't do that, then tablets would be next.
So what are the foods high in magnesium?
Legumes, primarily. So these are going to be your beans.
We're talking with Dr. Neil Nedley. We're giving a health update. We're looking at all kinds of studies here in 2006, actually August and September of 2006. Join us when we come back.
Are you confused about the endless stream of new and often contradictory health information? With companies trying to sell new drugs and special interest groups paying for studies that spin the facts, where can you find a common sense approach to health? One way is to ask for your free copy of Dr. Arnott's 24 Realistic Ways to Improve Your Health. Dr. Timothy Arnott and the Lifestyle Center of America produced this helpful booklet of 24 short, practical health tips based on scientific research and the Bible that will help you live longer, happier, and healthier. For example, did you know that women who drink more water lower the risk of a heart attack? Or that 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night can minimize your risk of ever developing diabetes? Find out how to lower your blood pressure and much more. If you're looking for help, not hype, then this booklet's for you. Just log on to 3abn.org and click on free offers or call us during regular business hours. You'll be glad you did.
Welcome back. We're talking with Dr. Neil Nedley. We're giving a health update. We're going through various studies that are kind of cutting edge. And so this is a little different than our normal programs, but I think you'll enjoy it. And we're just going study by study, looking at the cutting edge research, and it's coming right now into your living room. Dr. Nedley, we have looked at a number of studies on a whole bunch of different topics, and now we're looking at exercise as it relates to diabetes risk. What are they telling us now about this?
Well, exercise we have known is very critical for diabetics to lower their postprandial blood sugars. But we're also finding out in this particular study that was done by Finnish researchers in Finland, they found that when exercise decreased the waistlines, it decreased the complications of diabetes by 5.5 times. And so exercise to the point of being able to keep your waistlines under control is critical for a diabetic. What we're looking at primarily in diabetes is waist to hip ratios. And studies have shown that when the waistline gets big, it dramatically increases the complications of diabetes. And what we recommend is that people take a measuring tape, measure their waistline. And I used to say measure above where the bones are at, the pelvic bones, but
right.
Actually it's best to get the navel in there. Some people's navel is way down here. You still need to get that measurement in there. And then the second measurement is the pelvic bones themselves, where the hips are at. The waist is the denominator and the hips are the numerator. And if you can get that waist to hip ratio less than 0.8 and you're a female, you don't have an increased risk of these complications. If it's less than 0.95 and you're a male, you don't have an increased risk of that. And so that's where you're trying to get it in line at. And how that would actually fare out is that your waist should be definitely less than 31.5 inches if you're a woman. And of course, if you have small hips, it needs to be smaller than that, and that's why we would measure the waist to hip ratio. For the average white and black man, it's critical to be less than 37 inches. And again, if they have smaller hips, it would need to be smaller than that. And for Asian men, less than 35-inch waist. And that will significantly improve their longevity and improve their risk of complications.
So keep walking if the waist to hip ratio is bigger than that or larger than that. Just keep going.
Keep going.
That's
and
what this study
pushing
shows
the
us.
exercise. Yeah, exercise will actually decrease the waistline before it reduces the pounds.
Okay. We're kind of moving around the body. We're talking about all different kinds of things. This next study has to do with anger as it relates to the deterioration of the lungs.
Yes, this was a study from Harvard Medical School, and a very interesting study. We have known that for every year that you age, your lung capacity goes down by about 1%. This is after you're the age of 20 or so. And but what we now know is that your lung deterioration will be significantly worse if you have hostility or anger. And this is something we're not sure of the reason for it. But when your emotions are not well controlled and you have anger and hostility, you will lose significantly more lung function over time. And this was a study of 670 men. And that had, of course, when they were smokers, it even lost more. But smokers who weren't angry versus smokers who were angry, the angry smokers did worse. And for even people that were non-smokers, the angry non-smokers did worse than the non-angry non-smokers.
Okay. So anger is a big factor, and if you can get that under control, you're going to do much better.
Much better. And of course, now we've known for a while we'll do better in heart disease, but this is the first study to indicate we'll do better in lung function.
So what would you say to someone that says, well, how do I get over my anger? It's easy to say, don't be angry.
Well, there are several things that we would recommend. One of the best ways of controlling emotions is to learn about cognitive behavioral therapy. Most people who have anger and hostility have distorted thinking, actually. And there are 10 commandments, and there's 10 ways of distorted thinking. We have them learn the 10 ways of distorted thinking so that they can control their anger. They'll end up having a lot more frustration tolerance, actually. We have them build frustration tolerance. And we have them quit using the HTA words, the horrible, terrible, and the awfuls. People that utilize curse words, it's a sign of a limited vocabulary. They're going way off the scale in regards to accurate thoughts. And so we have them describe their emotions in accurate and more softer tones than way off the extreme, and that helps.
So it's better for them emotionally and in their relationships, but also better for their lungs. What we're finding.
That's right.
Okay, another study here. We have foods could make arthritis worse. What kind of foods?
Well, that's interesting. Rheumatoid arthritis. This is taking a look at inflammatory arthritis. And this study was published in Norway. Norway has been looking for quite a while at rheumatoid arthritis, and they had previously done a study showing that if you switch over to a plant-based diet, your rheumatoid arthritis significantly improves. And what this study showed is it's not just psychological. They were wondering, well, is it just due to the fact that these people think it's going to improve? And so they think a vegetarian diet's better, and so that is what makes them better. This study showed conclusively it's not due to psychology. It's actually due to immune phenomena. And people with rheumatoid arthritis get a production of antibodies to certain foods,
like
and that's
eggs,
strikingly
pork.
increased. And those are the foods primarily that they found the antibodies to: milk, eggs, pork, and fish.
That's probably pretty high in Norway. There's a lot of fish over there.
That's right.
And a lot of dairy products.
And so elimination of those foods can dramatically help control the rheumatoid arthritis, get the inflammation down.
Okay, another study looking at yet another disease, type 2 diabetes and the risk of colon cancer.
Yes, colon cancer is the second leading cause of cancer death in America. And we know a number of risk factors, but this study, published in the American Journal of Gastroenterology by Dr. Paul Limburg from Rochester, Minnesota, and the Mayo Clinic, showed that diabetes dramatically increases the risk of colon polyps, particularly if you smoke. So this should be two lessons. Number one, get your diabetes controlled. Number two, if you're a smoker and you're a diabetic, definitely quit smoking, and you might prevent the number 2 cause of cancer death in yourself.
Okay, another study now looking at the health of children and youth and talking about workouts. Saying very intense workouts are good for kids.
They are. Actually, we've known exercise is good for kids for a long time, but the question that this study was answering is, what is the difference between moderate exercise in kids and vigorous exercise? And what they found out is kids who participate in 40 minutes of vigorous exercise a day have a much better weight. In other words, they don't have the overweight condition and the obese condition that many kids are developing. And that's regardless of what they're eating. Actually, this study didn't take a look at what they were eating. Obviously, they'd be able to control it more by eating better foods. But vigorous exercise seems to be superior to moderate exercise as far as weight control is concerned. And we really need to be letting our kids know about this. When the kids are young, this is a time for vigorous exercise. Not vigorous to the point where they're pounding each other up and injuring themselves, but vigorous exercise such as running, track-type things where they're running, swimming, brisk walking, something that's more vigorous than just a stroll.
Okay, I remember in academy, you and I went to the same academy actually. You weren't
Yes.
You weren't in the academy, but I got a lot of vigorous exercise back then. Sometimes it was because I wasn't studying and I had to do like 200 push-ups or running laps around the school. So vigorous exercise is good. Another study that's dealing with kids, and that is sleep apnea in kids and brain damage.
Yeah, and this has to do with obesity as well, because there's a link between obese kids and the later development of sleep apnea. Sleep apnea is a condition where the individual quits breathing for maybe 20, 30 seconds while they're sleeping, maybe longer. It's often associated with snoring. If your kids snore, dramatic increased risk that they could have sleep apnea, and they may need to be checked for that. So it's not a bad idea to just go into your kid's room in the middle of the night and just see what's going on in there. And if they are snoring, they could have sleep apnea. The problem with sleep apnea in kids is that it not only causes the same problem in adults, which is lack of attentiveness in the daytime, and also a decrease in their memory, decrease in academic performance. But this study shows it's associated with neuronal damage, actually damage to the neurons. And this was found on an MRI scan of kids with sleep apnea, dramatic increased risk of permanent brain damage from the sleep apnea and the lack of oxygen as the kids are growing up.
So what do they do if someone's diagnosed with sleep apnea? What do they do to correct that in the kid?
Well, tell the kid to lose weight and get on an ideal weight. And until that time, we also have them put on a sleep apnea mask. It's a pressure type of mask that will overcome the blockage due to the obesity and allow air to continually be inhaled and exhaled during sleep.
Are these machines expensive? Is this something normal kids are already doing?
No, normal kids don't have these machines. They are not really that expensive. Most insurances, Medicare, Medicaid would pay for them if an individual has sleep apnea. They're a lot more comfortable than they used to be. The first time they're utilized, they're something new because you're having to wear something on your face as you sleep. But you'll notice a dramatic difference in the kids' attention, in their academic performance, and their ability to stay awake, and they will also sleep much more restoratively at night.
We've talked about a lot of different studies today, kind of just updating on many different things. What's the take-home message for us today?
Take-home message is to avoid obesity, exercise regularly, and if you're young, vigorously. And also eat plenty of the fruits and vegetables and whole grains. And if you're going to use oil, extra virgin olive oil is a very good oil to use. In addition to that, control your emotions and learn to tolerate frustration.
Thank you so much for being with us, Dr. Nedley. I believe you're working on a book, Health at Every Age, and it's these kind of things that will actually be there. And thank you for joining us today.